Hello and welcome to News Review. Around 50 Gibraltarians were in Brussels protesting against Spain's continued harassment of the ROC. A spokesman for the European Commission told the group presenting a petition that the Commission cares deeply about freedom of movement and wants a solution to the frontier with Spain. However, Peter Bosch from Commissioner Malmström's office says they have to look at the issue without emotion. Meanwhile, the European Petitions Committee, who received the petition from the citizens, has said it might be considering its own fact-finding mission to Gibraltar.
50 ordinary Gibraltarians, not politicians or lawyers, have presented their case before MEPs and representatives of Europe's highest powers. Among the audience, Lib Dems Sir Graham Watson, Conservatives Ashley Fox and Julie Girling, and UKIP's Earl of Dartmouth.
What I think is special about this protest is this is a group of people who are often ignored at European level. But Gibraltar people have rights in just the same way as any other people of Europe, and sometimes we have to fight to get those enforced.
I don't see any reason why they have to wait another several months. The situation is going on now. It's actually got worse as a result. We heard about the pedestrian problems, which did not exist. So why they can't act on that now, I don't understand. I still don't understand after today, but we'll have to keep pushing them.
I think that the process has achieved exactly what it's meant to do, which is to draw people's attention to what is going on, and what is going on is completely wrong. I've got nothing but the highest praise for the protesters because it's actually rather a cold day out there.
Kane Sanchez, the spokesman for the petitioners, told the politicians that the border between Gibraltar and Spain is historically used as a pressure point for Spain to try and choke the ROC into submission, particularly during times of Spanish antipathy, for example during a royal visit or when fishing disputes flare up. He presented photographic evidence to show that border problems have got worse over the last few days, despite the Spanish media reporting to the contrary. It wasn't expected, but it's certainly a bonus that a representative of the European Commission who was at the meeting, Peter Bosch, a member of Commissioner Malmström's cabinet, has given the concerned citizens a guarantee that the Commission does care deeply about this issue and that they're looking into ways of dealing with it. But, he said, they have to look at it in an unemotional way. He said they expected a reply from Spain in the next few weeks, stating what had been done to implement the recommendations on the border, and would leave all options open if they weren't satisfied, including court action.
The Spanish announced that they will send a letter soon to the Commission at a technical level on what kind of ideas they have for addressing the issue. So this is where we stand at this point in time. Be sure that we are committed to free movement of persons, not as a sort of language in the treaty, but also in reality.
Meanwhile, the Petitions Committee spokesman, Peter Lowe, said he would file the petition signed by the 10,000 Gibraltarians immediately, so it would get registered within this parliamentary year. He said the committee would consider sending its own delegation to Gibraltar on a fact-finding mission so it could report back to Parliament.
The provision certainly exists under the terms of our rules of procedure, and this is something that must be decided in the first instance by the members of the committee themselves. If that is approved and Parliament authorises such a visit, then it could indeed take place.
And outside in the cold and drizzle, the rest of the Gibraltarians who were on this trip took heart from the support given to them by MEPs.
I've been an activist for quite a while, and I'm very glad that many citizens, 50 of us from Gibraltar, has come together in unity and is here in Brussels and protesting, reference the climax that Spain is treating Gibraltar.
I think it's something that we all feel we had to do for Gibraltar, for our country. It's something we felt is our duty to actually be here and be part of this protest.
I'm delighted to be here today because I think it's about time we had a little bit of people power.
And I thought it was a great opportunity to actually come and tell the world what we're going through, what Spain is doing to us.
It may be election year in Europe this year, but these campaigners have made sure that they make the most of that to get their voice heard in Europe. It's the David and Goliath story, as it always is with Gibraltar, but these ordinary citizens have come here and they've set a tiny ripple in motion, which they're hoping in the future will become a wave. Jonathan Sacramento, GBC News, Brussels.
And later in the afternoon, the Gibraltarians staged a protest outside the Spanish embassy in Brussels. As the weather worsened, the protesters called for Spain to end its harassment of Gibraltarians and asserted the belief that Gibraltar has a right to determine its own future, free from the sovereignty claim by Spain. A representative of the protesters then handed a letter to the ambassador's secretary, setting out the many grievances at the border and with illegal incursions into British Gibraltar territorial waters. And Gibraltar's campaigners in Brussels also demonstrated at Rond Point outside the offices of the European Commission. It was the latest in a series of events organised by the petitioners to raise the profile of the Gibraltar issue before Europe's capital.
This is Rond Point. It's a roundabout surrounded by European Commission buildings. It's very popular with protesters. In fact, there are demonstrations here every day, sometimes two at the same time. And it's here that the Gibraltarian protesters have chosen as their venue for this latest protest, in full view of the European Commission and everyone who passes by. The Gibraltarian campaigners took centre stage in high spirits, buoyed by the previous day's hugely beneficial meetings with MEPs, the European Parliament's Petitions Committee and the Commission's spokesman Peter Bosch. As the protesters handed out leaflets to passers-by and held banners calling for Spanish harassment to end, they attracted attention from Spanish journalists based in Brussels, as well as a local TV crew and even a news team from Lithuania.
I think it's gone really well, actually. Everybody's gelled together. We've all got one aim, and that's Gibraltar. We all want to be united in the...
Spain are laughing at us, at their neighbours, at the UK, the European Commission. They seem to do what they want, when they want, and no one seems to be able to do anything about it. So I'm hoping this will make a difference. Basically.
We should come and do these things so that the world can see what they're doing to us. I don't think people are aware of what is happening in the frontier.
Live your lives, we can live ours, we can live together. There's no reason why we can't live together. And this is just a small step in the right direction, and we've done it in the right way. It's colourful, it's peaceful, it's been hard work, it's been cold, but it's been positive, and I feel very proud, and I think we all feel very proud.
Well, I think we made a bit of an impact in Brussels of what our problems are with the frontier, and I'm also very impressed with the support we've had from a group of the MEPs, especially Graham Watson.
At one point, a Spanish antagonist had to be escorted away from the scene by Belgian police when he attempted to anger the protesters by shouting Viva España and Gibraltar Español. Further meetings have taken place today with European Union officials, where the group's spokesman, Kane Sanchez, repeated the presentations made to MEPs. Jonathan Sacramento, GBC News, Brussels.
In other news this week, a cross-frontier collective of unions and associations presented a dossier detailing the social and economic effects of the very long frontier queues caused by Spanish government policy. The report is entitled European Union, What's Happened to the EU's Freedom of Movement. The group planned to deliver it personally to the EU in mid-February.
The group held a press conference today at the Gibraltar Teachers Association premises, with representatives from the GTA, Unite the Union and the GGCA, as well as the Federation of Small Businesses and the Chamber of Commerce in attendance.
I'd like to highlight the historic nature of what we are doing. I don't think anything of this type has ever happened before. I think we're a cross-frontier group that composed of businesses and unions on both sides of the border, and we're working on a totally non-political basis. We're not interested in the politics. We don't want politics being brought into the situation at the crossing at the frontier. We want people to be treated humanely and civilly.
In their report, the group claims that Spain is contravening the principle established in the Treaty of Rome that member states of the EU should abolish obstacles to freedom of movement for persons, services and capital. In so doing, the report says Spain is infringing the rights not only of its own citizens, but also those of the British citizens living in Gibraltar and the thousands of other EU citizens who live in the area on both sides of the border. The group says these actions by the Spanish government are wholly unjustifiable. They argue the checks and the resulting queues are having an adverse effect on the cross-border trade and consequently on economic growth.
It is the very nature of the relationship at a human level that is being damaged, and citizens are European citizens that we are, and non-European citizens too that visit us from time to time are being affected on a daily basis and have been for 6 months now.
They're hoping to form a strong bond that will ensure good neighbourly relations with the Campo regardless of what happens at the frontier.
The dossier and the letter and the first declaration will be sent to, as I said, Cecilia Malmström at the end of this week, and we also intend to copy it to other politicians in Europe, as well as politicians obviously in Gibraltar, Spain and the UK.
The group's trip to Brussels on the 17th and 18th of February will be self-funded. They'll present their report to the European Union and ask it to send a permanent representative to monitor the crossing into and out of Spain.
Also on Thursday, around 1,000 people gathered on the Spanish side of the border to demonstrate against the frontier queues. Politicians and union representatives joined citizens from La Línea, Gibraltar and further afield and called for a humanitarian frontier.
The protest brought together people from both sides of the border and gave them a platform to voice their discontent. Person after person took to the stage to speak out, their voices certainly audible at the frontier itself, only about 100 meters away. Although, as those on stage pointed out, as with last year's protest on the Gibraltarian side, there were no queues this evening. Among those at the protest was the mayor of La Línea, Gemma Araujo, who was invited on stage and said she was there above all as a citizen of La Línea and not a politician.
Y las buenas relaciones entre La Línea y Gibraltar han existido siempre. Lo que tenemos que trabajar todos unidos para que nadie desde fuera quiera venir a romperla.
Others who spoke included Samuel Fernández of Radio Bahía Libre, Juan Pesino of Unite, and Opposition Minister Jaime Neto.
En política hay dos tipos de política. Hay política de convivencia, de solidaridad entre los pueblos, y hay política de sembrar odio entre los pueblos. Yo siempre he luchado y lucharé por una política de convivencia y solidaridad.
The protest, held on the International Day of Peace, aimed to be apolitical, calling for mutually beneficial good relations rather than the incitement of hatred between Gibraltar and Spain. It was held by the monument to the Spanish workers, appropriately so, with many of the cross-border workers taking to the stage to express their anger at the economic hardship they feel the frontier queues are exacerbating for those on both sides of the border. With greater numbers turning out for this protest than the last, organisers expressed the hope that even more would come next time, but also an even more fervent wish that this will not be needed.
The former General Secretary of the Civil Service Union, GGCA, Michael Tampin, has filed a complaint in the Industrial Tribunal for unfair dismissal. This was confirmed by the union in a bulletin to members. Mr. Tampin was made redundant in October last year and given a redundancy package, the details of which were not disclosed. However, in the bulletin, the GGCA reveals that he was paid over £65,000. It says this was more than he was entitled to because, being over the age of 65, Mr. Tampin did not have the legal right to the sum he was awarded. However, it agreed to this payment to make sure the treatment of Mr. Tampin met the highest standards that could be expected of an employer. Unite the Union says civil service